United States in the AI race. In the last episode, we evaluated Russia using the friction matrix and saw how its structure shapes its position in the AI race. The friction matrix is a framework we built to measure structural resistance to AI and automation. It scores 10 factors, from privacy rules to regulatory timelines to institutional mass, to estimate how easily a country can absorb rapid technological change. Now we apply that same framework to the United States. Join us to find out where the U.S. may be able to adopt AI and automation quickly, and where it might encounter structural resistance to those same technologies. How does the U.S. compare to the other countries in our evaluation? United States friction score, 0.58. This is the full friction matrix profile for the United States. After evaluating all 10 structural indicators and averaging the results, the U.S. receives a friction score of about 0.58. The scale runs from 0 to 1 and is relative to the countries in our evaluation. Around 0.5 represents the structural midpoint. Lower numbers suggest fewer built-in barriers to deploying AI and automation at scale. Higher numbers indicate a system that will experience more resistance to these technologies in general. The United States scores slightly above the midpoint, relative to the other countries in the evaluation. But we have to look inside the metrics to see that some parts of the system support rapid technological change, while other parts introduce structural resistance that could slow large-scale AI adoption. Where friction is low. Ownership is where the United States has its lowest friction in the friction matrix. This category is designed to measure how easily income can decouple from jobs when jobs are disrupted for any reason, including automation. We evaluate this using two indicators: how many people receive job loss benefits and how much income is redistributed through those programs. In the United States, both indicators increased sharply during the COVID crisis, when large emergency programs temporarily expanded unemployment support across the population. Those emergency responses reveal an important structural signal. While normal levels of redistribution in the United States are closer to the middle of the pack, the system has shown that it can scale income redistribution quickly during large disruptions. That flexibility allows the United States to stand out in this category, producing a very low ownership friction score of about 0.30. Where friction is moderate. Privacy and safety both land near the middle of the pack for the United States. Privacy reflects how willing a society is to allow information to flow through the economy, while safety reflects how much protection is demanded before new technologies can be deployed. In both areas, the United States maintains relatively strong legal protections and regulatory processes, which slightly increase friction compared to some other countries in the study. In the United States, digitization shows the largest internal split in the results. Smart electricity meters have expanded quickly across the country because they follow clear economic incentives and relatively simple regulatory pathways. Once local regulators approve modernization programs, the technology can scale rapidly across the grid. Digital identity moves through a very different channel. Participation in recognized digital ID systems requires public enrollment and broader policy agreement, which brings more layers of decision-making into the process. Public debate, media scrutiny, lobbying, legislative hearings, regulatory review, and even court challenges can all shape how these systems develop. Since digital identity participation is a proxy for how smoothly people can interact with automated systems, low participation suggests the United States may face more friction when scaling AI-driven services. Where friction is higher. Government structure is where the United States shows the highest friction in the friction matrix. This category measures how much of a country's workforce and economic activity is tied to institutional systems that depend on statutory authority, licensing structures, or government-directed funding. In the United States, a large share of the workforce operates inside protected or credentialed sectors such as healthcare, education, finance, and government services. These sectors are deeply integrated into legal and regulatory frameworks. A similar pattern appears when we look at the share of GDP tied to statute-dependent sectors. Those sectors accumulate large resources and political influence, giving them the ability to lobby, regulate, or slow changes that threaten their position. As a result, entrenched institutional interests become the largest structural source of friction for adopting AI and automation in the United States. United States friction position, final insights. The friction matrix shows that the United States has both significant strengths and meaningful constraints when it comes to adopting AI and automation. Some parts of the system can move very quickly, while others contain powerful structural breaks. One of the most important strengths is crisis flexibility, combined with deep financial reserves. The United States has repeatedly shown that it can mobilize enormous economic resources during disruptions, temporarily expanding redistribution and stabilization programs to help the system absorb shocks while industries reorganize. Meanwhile, the United States also contains some of the strongest vested interests in the study. Large sectors of the economy operate inside institutional frameworks that carry significant political influence. In many ways, the traditional military-industrial complex has evolved into a broader vested interest industrial complex. As AI and automation push into these sectors, significant and prolonged pushback should be expected before AI optimization can fully take hold. Next time, we evaluate where Japan stands in the AI race between nations.